Would 47 seconds be enough to hide the scent of skin? The frantic heartbeat still thundering, and the warm trail of his release sliding down her thigh when her mom was back after the moment they had just finished? Or was this only the prelude to the next near-fatal slip? This is the story of Emma, the wife's daughter, and David, her stepfather. Now, let's begin.
Emma, he murmured as I reached him, pulling me close. His hands were urgent now, sliding under my nightshirt, cupping my breasts, thumbs circling my nipples until they hardened. I gasped into his mouth as we kissed, deeper this time, no hesitation. He lifted me onto the old workbench, pushing my legs apart. His fingers found me already wet, stroking slowly at first, then faster, building that delicious pressure. Yes, we are making love, I and David, my stepfather. This story begins the moment I first met him. I still remember the first time I saw David. It was late spring, the kind where the sun lingered in the sky, but the air was still cool enough to keep you in a light sweater. My mother had just married him, a man I barely knew, whose name had floated around family conversations like some distant relative. When he stepped through the door, suitcase in hand, I expected to feel nothing. But the moment our eyes met, something unexplainable passed between us. His gaze wasn't overly warm, but steady, observant, like he was trying to read the kind of person I was. "Emma, this is David," my mom said, her voice carrying a lightness she hadn't had in years. "Nice to finally meet you," he said, his tone calm, deep, the kind that seemed to settle into your chest. I smiled politely, but inside, I felt an odd twist. Not romantic, not yet, but something that made me aware of myself in a way I hadn't been before. Over dinner, I noticed the way he listened, really listened, when I spoke. Not like most adults who nodded absently. His attention felt dangerous, like stepping too close to the edge of something high. We found ourselves alone in the kitchen the next morning. The smell of coffee drifted between us. I was in my pajamas, hair still messy. "You're an early riser," he said. "Only when I have exams," I replied, tucking a loose strand of hair behind my ear. There was a pause, the kind that felt longer than it was. "How are you adjusting to all this?" he asked, gesturing vaguely toward the house, maybe the marriage, maybe life itself. "Still figuring it out," I admitted. "You?" His lips quirked in a half-smile. "Same." It wasn't much, but it felt like peeling back a layer. Every word between us seemed to carry an undertone we didn't name. My chest tightened with curiosity. About him, about why I cared how he answered. 2 weeks later, I was walking home from class when a sudden downpour hit. My phone buzzed. "David, where are you?" "On Fifth Avenue, walking." "Stay there." 5 minutes later, his car pulled up beside me, rain streaking the windshield. I climbed in, shivering, water dripping from my hair onto the seat. "You'll catch a cold," he said, reaching for a blanket in the back seat and wrapping it around me. His hands brushed my shoulders, firm, warm, and for a split second, I didn't want him to let go. We drove in silence except for the sound of the rain, but in that quiet, I felt something shift. Gratitude, yes, but also an unspoken pull. He had come for me, without hesitation. That night, lying in bed, I realized I was thinking about his hands, the way his voice softened when he told me to stay put, and I hated how much I liked it. It started with small things. A glance held too long, standing just a little closer in the hallway, a brush of fingers when passing something across the table. One evening, we ended up watching a movie together. The lights were low, the only glow coming from the screen. Our knees touched. Neither of us moved. "Emma," he said quietly, almost like a warning. "I know," I whispered back. I could feel the tension in him, in me. It was as if the air itself had thickened, daring us to breathe. But neither of us made the first move. Not yet. It was one of those rare nights when the world outside seemed to dissolve into a soft, insistent rhythm, the rain pattering against the windows like a lover's whisper, cloaking the house in a veil of intimacy. My mother had left for her weekend getaway earlier that day, her suitcase wheels echoing down the hallway like a distant farewell. The house felt vast and empty, yet charged with an electric hush, the kind that amplifies every breath, every heartbeat. I wandered into the kitchen, drawn by the faint glow of the under-cabinet lights, seeking something mundane, a glass of water perhaps, to steady the fluttering in my chest. David was there, leaning against the counter, a book forgotten in his hand. He looked up as I entered, his eyes catching the dim light, deep and unguarded, reflecting the storm outside. "You're still up," he said softly, his voice a low rumble that sent warmth pooling in my veins. "Couldn't sleep," I replied, my words barely above a whisper. The air between us thickened, heavy with the unspoken tension that had been building for weeks, the stolen glances, the accidental brushes, the way his presence lingered in my thoughts like a melody I couldn't shake. He set the book down and reached past me for a glass from the cupboard, his arm grazing mine. The contact was fleeting, yet it ignited something primal, a spark that had been smoldering too long. I turned toward him, and there he was, closer than propriety allowed, his breath warm against my skin, his scent an intoxicating mix of cedar and rain-dampened earth. Time slowed. I don't recall who moved first. Perhaps it was both of us, drawn together by an invisible thread of desire. His hand rose gently, fingers tracing the curve of my cheek with a tenderness that made my knees weaken. Our eyes locked, a silent confession passing between us. This is wrong, but it feels so right. Then, his lips met mine. Soft at first, exploratory, like the tentative brush of raindrops on a window pane. But the kiss deepened quickly, hungry and reverent, his mouth claiming mine with a passion that stole my breath. I tasted the faint hint of whiskey on his tongue, felt the tremble in his touch as his hand slid to the small of my back, pulling me flush against him. The glass he had reached for clattered softly onto the counter, forgotten as the world narrowed to just us. My fingers wove into his hair, thick and silky, drawing him closer. He lifted me effortlessly onto the cool granite countertop, my legs parting instinctively to wrap around his waist. His hands roamed with deliberate slowness, slipping under the hem of my thin cotton shirt, palms gliding over the heated skin of my stomach, upward to cup my breasts. Thumbs circled my nipples through the lace of my bra, coaxing them to peaks of aching sensitivity. A soft moan escaped me, muffled against his lips, as waves of pleasure rippled through my body. "Emma," he murmured, his voice rough with emotion, breaking the kiss only to trail feather-like kisses along my jaw, down the column of my neck. Each touch was a promise, a revelation. His lips worshipping the pulse at my throat, his teeth grazing just enough to send shivers racing down my spine. I arched into him, my hands tugging at his shirt, desperate to feel the warmth of his skin against mine. Clothes fell away in a haze of urgency and care, my shirt discarded, his followed, revealing the sculpted lines of his chest, the faint scattering of hair that I traced with trembling fingers. He unclasped my bra with reverent hands, his gaze devouring me as if I were the most precious thing he'd ever seen. "You're beautiful," he whispered, lowering his head to capture a nipple in his mouth, sucking gently. Then with increasing fervor, his tongue swirling in languid circles that mirrored the building storm within me. I gasped, my head falling back, fingers digging into his shoulders as he lavished attention on the other breast, his free hand dipping lower, unbuttoning my shorts with agonizing slowness. His fingers slipped beneath the fabric, finding me slick and ready, stroking with a rhythm that was both teasing and profound. "David," I breathed, his name a plea on my lips as he circled my most sensitive spot, building the tension coil tight. He shed the rest of our barriers, his arousal evident, hot and hard against my thigh. Lifting me slightly, he positioned himself at my entrance, pausing to search my eyes. One last moment of consent, of shared vulnerability. I nodded, pulling him closer, and he entered me slowly, inch by exquisite inch, filling me completely. The sensation was overwhelming, a perfect union of bodies and souls, our gazes never breaking as he began to move. Our rhythm was unhurried at first, savoring every thrust, every glide, the rain outside sinking with our hushed gasps and whispers. His hands cradled my face, thumbs stroking my cheeks as he kissed me deeply, pouring years of restrained longing into each movement. I clung to him, legs locked around his hips, meeting him thrust for thrust, the countertop cool beneath me, a stark contrast to the fire building between us. Faster now, driven by a passion that blurred the lines of right and wrong, we chased release together. His hands slipped between us, fingers working in tandem with his hips, pushing me over the edge first. I shattered around him, waves of ecstasy crashing through me, my cries muffled against his shoulder. He followed moments later, burying himself deep, his body shuddering as he spilled into me, his forehead pressed to mine in silent communion. We stayed entwined, breaths mingling, hearts pounding in unison, the rain a soothing lullaby to our afterglow. He kissed my forehead, my eyelids, my lips, gentle affirmations of the bond we'd forged. In that moment, wrapped in his arms, the world felt infinitely tender, infinitely ours. But as the haze lifted, reality crept back. The details of that night blur in memory now. The exact curve of his smile, the precise timbre of his whispers. But the truth remains etched in my soul. We had crossed the line, stepping into a forbidden paradise, and once tasted, there was no returning to the innocence of before. Our secret flame had ignited, burning brighter in the shadows, promising both ecstasy and peril. After that night, we seized every stolen moment to be closer, even daring to the edge of discovery. Mother was asleep upstairs, her soft snores filtering through the walls like a distant reminder of the risk we were taking. It had been only 2 days since that night in the kitchen, but the ache between us was unbearable. David texted me from the guest room, "Come to the basement." Quietly. I slipped out of bed, heart pounding, barefoot on the cool hardwood floor. The basement door creaked just enough to make me freeze, but no one stirred. Downstairs, he was waiting in the dim glow of a single lamp, shirtless, his eyes dark with the same hunger I felt. "Emma," he murmured as I reached him, pulling me close. His hands were urgent now, sliding under my nightshirt, cupping my breasts, thumbs circling my nipples until they hardened. I gasped into his mouth as we kissed, deeper this time, no hesitation. He lifted me onto the old workbench, pushing my legs apart. His fingers found me already wet, stroking slowly at first, then faster, building that delicious pressure. "We have to be silent," he whispered, but his voice was rough. I nodded, biting my lip as he entered me. Slow, thick, filling me completely. We moved together in hushed rhythm, the workbench creaking softly under us. His hand covered my mouth when I moaned too loud, our eyes locked. When we came, it was in waves of muffled ecstasy, his release warm inside me. We stayed connected for a moment, breathing hard, before sneaking back upstairs, separately, hearts racing. Mother had gone to her yoga class, leaving the house empty for a precious hour. David cornered me in the laundry room, the washer humming loudly enough to mask our sounds. "Now," he said, spinning me around, pressing me against the vibrating machine. Clothes came off in a frenzy, my shorts yanked down, his pants unzipped. He took me from behind, one hand on my hip, the other teasing my clit in circles. The vibrations from the washer amplified everything. I gripped the edge, pushing back against him with each thrust. "God, Emma, you're so tight," he groaned quietly, his pace quickening. We were reckless, the risk making it intense. I turned my head for a kiss as he drove deeper, our bodies slick with sweat. He pulled my hair gently, arching my back, hitting that spot that made stars explode behind my eyes. We finished just as the washer beeped its cycle end, him spilling into me shuddering around him. We dressed hastily, sharing a guilty smile. But as I left the room, I heard the front door. Mother was early, humming as she entered. Avid distracted her in the kitchen while I slipped upstairs, my legs still trembling. A family errand turned into our playground. Mother sent us to pick up groceries together, trusting as ever. On a quiet back road, David pulled over into a secluded wooded area, the car hidden by trees. "Here?" I asked, but I was already climbing into the back seat with him. Windows fogged instantly as we stripped partially. My top off, his hand down my panties, fingers plunging in and out while I stroked him hard and fast. He laid me back, entering me missionary style, the car rocking slightly with our movements. "Faster," I begged in a whisper, wrapping my legs around him. His thrusts were deep, controlled but fierce, our breaths mingling. I came first, clenching around him, and he followed, biting my shoulder to stifle his groan. We were straightening up when a car passed on the road, close enough to make us freeze. Headlights swept by, but didn't stop. We laughed nervously, driving home with groceries in the trunk and secrets in our eyes. Mother never suspected a thing. The tension peaked during a weekend barbecue at home. Relatives milled about, laughter echoing in the yard. David and I stole glances all afternoon, the forbidden pull electric. When everyone was distracted by games, he texted, "Kitchen, now." I excused myself to grab more drinks. Inside the kitchen, door cracked for light. He pinned me against the fridge, hiking up my sundress. No foreplay this time. He thrust into me hard, my back against the cool metal. "I've needed this all day," he panted, one hand over my mouth, the other rubbing my clit furiously. We were lost in it, my nails digging into his shoulders, his hips slamming against mine. The sounds, wet, rhythmic, seemed too loud. Then, footsteps approached. "David? Emma? Where's the beer?" It was Uncle Mark, inches from the door. We froze mid-thrust, David's eyes wide. He pulled out silently, yanking my dress down, and I grabbed some beer from the fridge. I opened the door casually. "Right here," I said, voice steady despite my racing pulse. David emerged behind me, composed, but his face flushed. Uncle Mark grabbed the beer and left, oblivious. We didn't finish. What was interrupted hung heavy, the closest we'd come to disaster. Days blurred after the kitchen scare. We avoided each other in the house, the near miss a stark warning, but the desire didn't fade. It simmered, waiting for the next slip. One night, Mother announced a short trip alone. To clear my head. David and I exchanged a look across the dinner table, loaded with promise and fear. As she packed, he brushed my hand under the table, a silent question. That evening, with her gone, we met in the living room. No words, just need. He took me on the couch, slow and deep this time, as if savoring what might be last. But midway my phone buzzed, a text from Mother. "Forgot something, coming back quick." We scrambled, hearts in throats, dressing in panic. She arrived minutes later, none the wiser. Or was she? Her glance lingered on us that night, a flicker of something unspoken. The line we'd crossed felt fragile now, teetering on exposure. Would we stop, or risk it all again? The question hung in the air, unanswered, as the house settled into uneasy quiet.